Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today in today's webinar. I'm Nurul Hazina binti Nordin from the Centre for Industry and Community Network, UMP, University Malaysia Pahang, also known as ICON. So in ICON, our mission is to become the focal centre for university industry and community engagement, to ensure that engagement is in line with our vision and mission, and to strengthen and grow partnership locally and internationally. And this brings us to today's talk, Professional Talk series, the webinar edition, entitled Social Impact, Myth or Possible Reality. Okay, just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in the question box in your Google Meet or Facebook control panel. I'll bring them up during the Q&A session at the end of this webinar. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our panelists for today. Our first panelist is Dr. Ahmad Johari bin Muhammad. He is one of my faculty members, serving in UMP since 2001. Yeah, Dr. Jo is among the pioneer members of University Malaysia Pahang, back then as a tutor, I believe. Okay. Which, by the way, known as COOCTEM, one of the pioneering MTONs in Malaysia, Malaysian Technical University Network University. So Dr. Jo obtained his PhD in University of Warwick back in 2019. Okay, today, Dr. Jo is the Dean of Students Development and Alumni Affairs in University Malaysia Pahang. So under this portfolio, Dr. Jo leads numerous social-based activities with the students. Okay. Our second panelist, Encik Abdul Halim Kudri, which is now online, is an occupational safety health and executive in Malaysian pharmaceutical industries in Penang. So Encik Halim is an active member of Himpunan Lepasan Institusi Pendidikan Malaysia, also known as Haluan. So throughout his involvement, Encik Halim has engaged with numerous community, including community in Maluboh, Aceh, Syria, Myanmar, PD Jaya, Aceh. And recently, Encik Halim has been awarded with UNESCO grant to do activities with the Aborigines, orang asli in Malaysia. So our third panelist, who is also online, is Dr. Yasmin Rashid. So Dr. Yasmin Rashid is a sustainability and social entrepreneurship professional. She is biologist by profession, environmentalist by passion. So Dr. Yasmin has 20 years of experience and knowledge in environmental management, community development, strategic partnership for sustainability and social responsibility in Malaysia. Dr. Yasmin founded Econite back in 2005, in which she volunteered her time and energy to support the growth of Econite through facilitating and engaging multi-stakeholders from donors, government agencies in Malaysia. So welcome everyone to today's webinar talk series.
Alhamdulillah.
Okay. So we have a montage from University Malaysia Pahang under JPA to play along. So if you can play the montage before we begin with our question and answer. Alright, okay, thank you very much for the video. So I would like to begin with our first panelist today, Dr. Jo. So our topic for today is impactful outreach program, a myth or a reality. So academically, what does impactful program means to you?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Thank you, Dr. Nurul, as the
Thank you.
moderator. Cik Halim from Haluan, Dr. Yasmin, and all the audience. Basically, when we talk about the social impacts, right, a myth or a possible reality, I would like to, start with that. When we talk about social impact, actually we are talking about the harmony or the impact to the universe. This is the first and the foremost important to us. When we talk about the social impact, actually it goes back into the importance of any initiative, and it gives impact to the universe. Either we're talking about the social, we're talking about any economic initiative, any technological initiative, and so on, right? the, it will give impact to the either the peoples, the animals, or the environments, right? And any single creatures on earth. This is the main important, and this is very important for us because this is the reasons of our creations by the God. This is the what you call it, the objective of the existence, and we serve God and also be a help hand to the others, right? That's the social impact means. Secondly is that when we talk about how does impactful program means, I would like to start with if we can go through into the definitions of the sustainable development goals, right? There is, we call it a SDG. It is designed by the United Nations General Assembly. They have 17 SDG goals, right? It is, for example, the first one is no poverty. No poverty means that when we want to do some things or any projects, it must impact to help the poor. It means that we bring up the poor. So then no poverty, zero hunger, that's the means of the impact. It means that when we do something, we need to tackle about how to not eliminate, but how to reduce the zero hunger. It's talk about the good health and well-being. It's talked about the quality educations, gender equality, and also it talks about the clean water, right? We are having problems in certain states nowadays that about the clean water, right? It's also about they are talking and they stated about the affordable and clean energy. This is something that we are talking about the what we call it renewable energies, right? And number 8 is decent works and economic growth, industrial innovations and infrastructure, reduce inequalities. And then, yeah, all of us, we can read in the, we can Google and find out about what is the SDG means. So when we talk about the what does it means by impactful programs, so it must go into these 17 SDGs. That's the first one. Second is that when we do any programs or any projects on the social for the social impacts, we need to blend between the formal and informal approaches, right? This is very important. We don't want to what we call it identify that our program is more about the formal program. We just launch any the big events, right? Attended by the minister or the politicians and so on, but there is no mentoring program. There is no what we call it the long term development into to to make sure that the initiative is sustained, right? We need to ensure that the impactful programs, it must be a blend between the formal and informal approaches. The third is we need to go beyond one of initiatives. This is very important, right? We need to have more than one what we call it a long-term initiative, and we need to go beyond that. It's not just touch and go. Then we consider that give impact to the socials. And the last is that any impactful program, we need to know when we need to have the instruments to measure and continually evolve the programs to be a better, to become better and to support the long-term achievement. So for me, the impactful programs, it must, currently, we need to go to the basics that any programs, any what you call it, any initiative, it must impact in a positive way to the universe, to the people, to the animals, and to the environments. Secondly, we need to go into the SDG, Sustainable Development Goals, 17, right? Then we need to blend it between the formal and informal, go beyond one of initiative, and lastly, we need to have the instrument to measure and to make it better day by day. for the long term achievement. So this is what I means by, from the academia perspective, what does it mean by impactful programs?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joe, for the I can say comprehensive input. You had touched that it shouldn't be a touch and go project,
No.
which means that it
Yeah.
should be a long term
Long-term.
and also should be taught thoroughly
Right.
before it's being done.
Yeah.
And of course, there must be instrument to measure. Yeah,
Right.
that is the only way that we can see improvements every
Yeah.
cycle that we do and so on.
Right.
Okay. I also like your remark just now, whereby you mentioned that when we talk about impact, it is not just impact to human, but also
Yeah.
to the
To
universe.
the universe.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Joe. So I'll move on to the second panelist for today, which is Encik Abdul Halim. So there is a video montage that we will be playing on haluan as an introduction for Encik Halim's haluan activities.
Haluan peneraju perubahan, bina masyarakat berakhlak mulia, berteraskan Islam, iman, takwa dan ihsan, prihatin, penyayang, sedia berkorban. Haluan peneraju perubahan, bina masyarakat berakhlak mulia, berteraskan Islam, iman, takwa dan ihsan, prihatin, penyayang, sedia berkorban. Haluan akan terus berbakti, haluan tiada henti mengabdi, haluan sentiasa berjuang, haluan jaya, haluan. Haluan cergas, tangkas dan kreatif, jalin kehidupan yang penuh harmoni, berakhlak, pendidikan, berbakti, melahirkan pemimpin sejati. Haluan akan terus berbakti, haluan tiada henti mengabdi.
Okay, Assalamualaikum Encik Halim. Okay, I have a question to Encik Halim. So, being a social activist that involve a lot with the Aborigines, orang asli, what define impactful outreach programs when you do activities with these Aborigines, Encik Halim?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati Puan Moderator, Profesor Media IR Dr. Nur Hazina Nordin, Pengarah Pusat Jaringan Industri dan Masyarakat Universiti Malaysia Pahang. Yang dihormati dan dikasihi Dr. Ahmad Johari Ahmad, Dekan Pembangunan Pelajar, dan saya Dr. Yasmin Rashid, Presiden Ekonite, mahasiswa-mahasiswa Universiti Malaysia Pahang, dan tuan-tuan dan puan-puan para penonton pada program Siri Bicara Profesional. Alhamdulillah, kita memanjatkan kesyukuran Allah SWT kerana memberi kita kesempatan untuk terus hidup memakmurkan dunia yang penuh dengan cubaan-cubaan. Yang terkini adalah pandemik COVID-19. Bagi kita sama-sama berperanan untuk memutuskan rantaian virus ini dengan kita mengikuti segala SOP yang ditetapkan oleh pihak kerajaan. Ini adalah satu kewajipan dari segi syarak. Jadi tajuk forum adalah Community Impact Social. Dan saya mewakili NGO Haluan diberi tugas untuk membincangkan impact sosial khusus program menyantuni orang asli bangsa Jahai di rancangan penempatan semula orang asli Aibanun, Grid Perak. Dari segi sudut aktiviti sebagai sebuah NGO kebajikan. Sebelum itu, saya ingin memperkenalkan diri saya sendirilah. Ya, nama saya Abdul Halim Khudri, berasal dari Pekan Pahang. Yang sekarang ni Pahang terkenal dengan Negeri Musang King. Dan sekarang saya menetap di Pulau Pinang, itu Pearl of the East. Jadi saya adalah aktivitis kemanusiaan yang mewakili NGO Haluan Malaysia, atau nama penuhnya Himpunan Lepasan Institusi Pendidikan Malaysia. Dan haluan kita mempunyai cawangan-cawangan di seluruh negeri di Malaysia.
Encik Halim,
Dan
Encik Halim, maaf, boleh saya request Encik Halim untuk buka video?
oh, gitu.
Maaf.
Mahal tu. Okey,
Saya baru tahu rupanya Encik Halim orang Pekan je. Saya ingat orang Penang.
Ya.
Okey, thank you.
Anak Jati Pahang,
Okey. Thank you. Maaf, okey, boleh teruskan. Terima kasih.
Okey, sekarang kita semua SOP COVID, saya work from home. Ya. Okey. Jadi haluan selain daripada mempunyai cawangan di negeri Malaysia, juga mempunyai cawangan di luar negara seperti di UK, Jordan, Mesir dan Cambodia. Dan NGO kami ini terbukalah untuk tuan-tuan dan puan-puan para penonton menjadi relawan, berkhidmat bersama kami untuk menyantuni masyarakat yang memerlukan bantuan. Ia merentasi sepadan negara, agama dan bangsa. Jadi saya profesional ini saya adalah pengamal OSH yang tertumpu kepada industri-industri, insyaAllah. Jadi di dalam forum ini saya akan berkongsi pengalaman kami sebagai NGO kebajikan yang turun ke lapangan menyantuni masyarakat yang ditimpa musibah. Sebenarnya haluan ni aktiviti kita bukanlah di dalam negeri, juga di luar negara, ya, insyaAllah. Yang mana kita ditubuhkan dalam tahun 1988, insyaAllah. Jadi pengalaman kami dalam menyantuni masyarakat ini dia berbeza. Kalau macam masyarakat yang ditimpa oleh peperangan, ya, seperti di Lebanon, di Syria, ya, Palestin, cara bantuannya berbeza sedikit berbanding dengan kalau di Malaysia ni peningkatan tu bencana kita adalah banjir-banjir, yang dulu masa banjir yang besar di Kelantan, tsunami darat, ya, insyaAllah. Jadi berbeza cara bantuan yang akan dijalankan oleh NGO kebajikan, insyaAllah. Jadi di dalam forum ini saya akan berkongsi dengan tuan-tuan dan puan-puan pengalaman kami dalam menyantuni orang asli di Greek Perak, insyaAllah. Baik, balik kepada forum ini, soalan adalah apakah yang dimaksudkan dengan program yang memberi impak atau kesan yang besar terhadap program menyantuni masyarakat orang asli dari sudut gerak kerja NGO sukarela, yang mana NGO sukarela ini berbeza daripada gerak kerja agensi-agensi kerajaan seperti JAKWA, JAKIM dalam menyantuni khusus masyarakat orang asli. Sama sekali dalam apabila kita ingin menyantuni orang asli ini, sebab ini topik khusus yang diberi kepada saya, pertama sekali kita mesti kena faham mentaliti dan pemikiran saudara-saudara kita ini yang duduk di hutan belantara yang jauh dari pembangunan masyarakat arus perdana. Bagi mereka, kehidupan mereka adalah bergantung pada sunnah alam. Bagi mereka, keluasan hutan itu adalah hak mereka untuk bebas bergerak, menjalani kehidupan turun-temurun. Walaupun realiti sekarang ini, rata-rata mereka telah dikumpul dan ditempatkan di rancangan penempatan semula atau singkatan RPS di seluruh negara, dan ia diuruskan oleh agensi khas kerajaan iaitu Jabatan Kebajikan Orang Asli. Jadi sepanjang forum ini insyaAllah kita akan berkongsi pengalaman kami di situ, ya. Jadi untuk makluman pengenalannya tentang tempat ni, ya. Jadi perkampungan orang asli ni, Air Banun adalah merupakan kawasan perkampungan orang asli kaum Jahai. Orang asli ni ada banyak suku kaum, ya. Negrito, Senai, ya, macam-macam, ya. Tapi ini adalah kaum Jahai. Perkampungan ini dia terletak di dalam RPS Air Banun yang mana mempunyai dalam 20 kampung orang asli. Ya, jadi kami pergi ke kampung yang termundur sekali iaitu kampung air Banun. Ia mempunyai tak ramai, cuma 14 buah keluarga, tetapi penduduknya dah seramai dalam 100 orang. Kerana satu rumah tu banyak keluarga yang duduk. Jadi penduduk di kampung ini adalah golongan yang paling mundur dan daif dari segi kesihatan, pelajaran dan interaksi dengan masyarakat luar. Pekerjaan mereka hanyalah mencari hasil hutan untuk dijual dan mereka suka bergaul di kalangan kaum mereka saja dan mereka tidak mahu bergaul dengan masyarakat luar. Walaupun keadaan dia di sebelah kampung dia ada sekolah yang besar, sekolah kerajaan, tapi anak orang kampung tu cuma seorang je yang pergi sekolah. Yang lain semua tidak ke sekolah. Okay. Jadi ini introduction je ya. Projek pembangunan orang asli ini adalah projek kemasyarakatan haluan Malaysia yang diuruskan oleh khususnya ahli-ahli haluan cawangan Pahang. Sebenarnya di Malaysia ini haluan pun mempunyai projek-projek kemasyarakatan seperti contohnya di Sabah orang baja laut ya. Seperti PMI di Sabah. Dan juga biasanya apabila kita turun kepada masyarakat untuk memberi bantuan, biasanya kita akan sasarkan kepada pendidikan. Macam contoh, apabila kita turun ke yang terbaru ini, kita turun ke Sulawesi, iaitu keadaan tsunami ya di Sulawesi, yang 3 tsunami di sana. InsyaAllah kita membina rumah haluan sementara dan di situ juga kita membantu dari segi pendidikan, ya, pendidikan. Begitu juga di Malaysia juga apabila kita menyantuni pelayaran Rohingya, kita mempunyai pusat pembelajaran untuk pelayaran Rohingya Education Center. Ya. Jadi bagi kita impak yang besar pada masyarakat adalah melalui pendidikan. Kerana inilah yang boleh membuat mereka sustain untuk penerusan pembangunan ya. Jadi projek pembangunan orang asli ini adalah merupakan projek kita dalam tujuan kita adalah membentuk mereka ini supaya dapat bersama-sama dengan arus perdana masyarakat sekarang ni, arus perdana moden ya, insyaAllah.
Okay.
Jadi pada peringkat awalnya aktiviti ini ialah peringkat awal dalam menyantuni aktiviti ini untuk memberi impak yang besar adalah kita kena menyantuni hati-hati mereka untuk menerima dan mempercayai pihak luar yang memberi bantuan, insyaAllah. Ini introduction awal lah, insyaAllah. Nanti kita akan berkongsi bersama. Saya serahkan balik kepada pihak moderator, insyaAllah.
Okay. Terima kasih Encik Halim. Saya masa kita craft out sesi ni, memang kita specifically nak target nak dapat pandangan Encik Halim ni sebab sepanjang pengalaman kita, macam yang Encik Halim mention tadilah, bila kita buat program bersama dengan orang asli, kadang-kala persepsi impak kita adalah berbeza dengan apa yang dikehendaki oleh masyarakat asli itu sendiri. Kerana kadang-kadang kita nampak susah tapi rupanya mereka selesa dengan kehidupan sebegitu. Tapi terima kasih atas pencerahan yang Encik Halim berikan sebentar tadi, kerana ternyatanya melalui aktiviti outreach berbentuk pendidikan ni, ia mampu memberi sedikit sebanyak infuse supaya mereka dapat melibatkan diri dalam arus perdana. Okay, terima kasih Encik Halim. Okay, I would like to move on to our third panelist for today, Dr. Yasmin Rashid. So before we start with this session, we have a montage to play regarding eco-night activities and so on.
Pendapat saya memang bagus lah begini. Kesedaran kita ada untuk alam sekitar kita.
Jadi secara langsung ni mungkin buat menjadi kesadaran kepada kita semua menggunakan barang kita semula, sebab kita barang kita semula tu mungkin kita akan merosakkan pencemaran banyak. Jadi dengan ada kempen macam ni baguslah kesadaran kita pengguna-pengguna sini.
Bagi saya sangat bagus sebab saya pun dah start guna reusable bag semua, so bila kita buat benda macam ni for me sangat bagus lah sebab mengurangkan sampah sarap kat luar apa semua, so use bag. Okay.
Bagi saya memang program ni memang bagus dan patut diteruskan di masa-masa akan datang untuk menghidupkan lagi kan suasana tarikan pelancong. So kalau kita buat macam ni, pelancong-pelancong pun akan masuk lagi dan memberi semua pandangan positif kepada Malaysia.
Baguslah untuk kempen ni sebab kita tahu bulan Ramadan ni sebenarnya untuk kita berjimat cermat, jadi tidak menggunakan barang-barang yang boleh membazir. Jadi salah satunya kita macam kempen pada hari ni untuk mengurangkan penggunaan plastik. Jadi itulah sebenarnya kalau kita selalu mengguna, kita ambil balik buang ke sampah, itulah satu pembaziran yang dalam bulan Ramadan ni terutamanya tidak patut diamalkan.
I think apa yang korang buat is a good initiative lah untuk bagi kesedaran kat orang-orang yang lain. So it's good that kita orang kalau nak buat benda as simple as beli barang kat bazar, we can also save the environment. As simple as bawa bekas sendiri. So yeah, it's a good initiative and I think it's impactful.
No to plastic!
No to plastic.
Say no to plastic.
Say no to plastic.
Say no to plastic.
Assalamualaikum Dr. Yasmin.
Salam.
Okay.
First time I tengok video tu.
Alright. Thank you Dr. Yasmin for being with us today. So Dr. Yasmin is very active in doing a community project, and also Dr. Yasmin is also from corporate. So if we can get a little bit insight into an introduction to Econite, and also what are the criteria or merit that define a success ataupun dis-success for any community project that Econite do?
Okay, well, thank you very much for having me on this forum. Econite was established 15 years ago, 2005. I founded it because I realized there was quite a lot of missing elements in terms of how community development interventions were delivered. So to cut the story short, in the last 15 years, our core focus is on how to empower communities to be active participants in sustainable living.
Okay.
And I think one of the things we do as an NGO is to deliver interventions to empower communities towards that direction of sustainability. And in my last 15 years of running Econites, as well as studying the concept of sustainable community development, what I found out, in my personal opinion, what defines a successful community development program is when an NGO like us can exit from giving support to the communities. That means the community is empowered to lead, to design their own programs without the need of NGOs. So if I were to condense it, it is not sustainable for Econites to continuously be in existence. I think in a perfect world where everyone is responsible to create positive impact for the environment or for society, it's everyone's responsibility if everyone's inspired and empowered. And I see Econites as a non-profit outfit that fits contemporary needs right now to push for these interventions to be adopted by communities. But in my ideal world, it's really to put ourselves out of business, if I can say that. I think the day Econites doesn't need to exist in society is the day I hope communities are already in charge of delivering their own impact to society and environment. That's my simplistic take on it.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yasmin. Yeah, you mentioned just now it's about empowerment, yeah, and there is an exit from bringing the support. From your experience in doing this kind of activity, what is the shortest time that is required, ataupun what is the most longest, extreme short and extreme long, that Econite has to take the time in order to empower a community? From your
I
experience.
think majority of the communities we work with are still in that phase of working with us.
Okay.
But what we do is, I think more importantly in designing community development programs for me, for Econites, is designing what is our exit strategy. It's not like I don't want to hold the community's hands, but I think our role as an NGO is basically as a catalyst, as a stimulus to nudge them a little bit, to give them the support, to give them the connection, the network. So I would say there are different levels of empowerment and engagement in communities. It also depends, it's a very hard question to answer because it also depends on the willingness and the capacity of the target community or the beneficiary community. So like even the communities that I was studying and assisting with in Sabah for my PhD, it has been 7-8 years. And I still see myself giving some sort of moral support to them, because I think change in a community setting is not something that happens overnight. It's about leadership, it's about governance. Sometimes politics get in the way, you know. And it's also about belief systems. Is it a shared belief system in that community that they all want to drive towards a particular impact they want to create in their backyard? So it's a little bit more complex, and also community development is very multidimensional. It's not like A plus B equals C. You know, it comes in various. It's a broad spectrum. So it's complex, but I think we are currently in a ecosystem which puts a lot of emphasis on impact-driven initiatives for communities. And the buzzword is also very strong now in the media. You see government agencies also talking about delivering impact. It's not just outputs now. It's just not quantitative outputs, you know, ramai orang yang benefited from the program. It's how much you have changed that person, transformed that person, improved that person's quality of lives. So I'm glad we are at that level of conversation today. But I think banyak juga cabaran we are still facing. Like for instance, I'm having a challenge right now to figure out how do we calculate social value, social impact from a national perspective. Macam in foreign countries, in UK, US, for every kind of bantuan you give to a community, you can actually quantify the kind of social value derived from helping a community. Kat sini, kat Malaysia, I think we are just talking about it. There are some really amazing high-level documents from Agency Inovasi Malaysia that touch on social value, impact and all that. Cuma mungkin kita kena perbanyakkan lagi more discussion on that, and maybe being very transparent to look at across all government structures what sort of data we can extract, look at coming up with, you know, coefficients or numbers that we can use to measure. So macam sekarang, if you give me R1 million and I help a community improve access to water, so you give me R1 million as an investor, I'm sure you would like to see an impact that's worth more than the R1 million that you have donated, right? In terms of impact on a person's life. So what are the formulas? What are the methodologies? How do you measure this? I think this is one domain of the challenge which I am currently facing. And also because I'm in the corporate side and everything needs to be quantify what's my return of investment if I invest in the community, if I invest in, say, companies that bring positive change to communities. How do I, as an investor or a donor or funder, measure back the impact based on what I have donated or supported? So this will help government, I think, in the long run, because government spends a lot on grants, funding to support NGO to give relief efforts and all that. And I am sure at some point someone's auditing this and saying, kalau you dah bagi 1 juta untuk membantu community A, membanteras whatever gejala, whatever social dadah dan sebagainya, what is the social return of that? How many lives have you improved? Can you quantify that? Can you measure that? And also very longitudinal. Social change doesn't happen in a financial year only for 12 months. Social change happens over a mid to long term. So when people do community development work, I think it is really something that is not just touch and go. And I resonate with the other two speakers as well. If it's touch and go, then it's really just charity, donation, philanthropy, I call that. But if you really want to work with people to create impact, it requires a whole level of investment, not just financially, but personally as well.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Yasmin, for that very insightful thoughts. And yeah, you mentioned it should be beyond numbers. So in UMP, that is what we are trying to look, and we want to cultivate for our students and so on. So we do things previously, and for some reasons, we do kind of reporting and so on. But to touch the baseline as for the impact socially, so like you mentioned, we need to have certain methodologies in order to prove that and so on. Okay.
Yeah. But in a general concept, it is just basic science. It's just basic science. There must be a methodology. There must be a way of measuring qualitatively or quantitatively. If you can't measure it, I don't see how you can report on impact. The world is built on evidence of how you measure what you do.
And that need to be thought through in the beginning while the proposal is being crafted out, Sometimes
so all students need to look at what is the theory of change. What kind of change are they trying to do with that short amount of time? Or what kind of activities they are doing there that contribute to a bigger change in that community? Because setakat spend 2 days, agihkan whatever, stuff and bersihkan sungai, esok sungai kotor juga. So that's not something viable. As a seronok-seronok kind of thing, yes, maybe. Siapa yang tak pernah bersihkan sungai, try it for the first time. But it's not really going to change the lives of communities.
Okay.
We need to improve.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Yasmin. So I'd like to move on to Dr. Jo with the next question, which is, has UMP student been engaging with this kind of community work? And what kind of projects do normally UMP students do in the past?
Okay, Dr. Nurul. Basically, I would like to share about what I can say is that it's about the 3 categories, right? We're talking about the first is about the KPT itself, initiative from the KPT, and it comes into the universities under the staff levels and also under the students levels. It means that starting from the KPT itself with the policies, then it go down into us as the operator and under the university's operations. For examples, in KPT right nowadays, they already initiate one project. We call it SULAM. SULAM is the Service Learning Malaysia University for Society. So this SULAM project is actually they embedded the social works under the academic subjects. That, for example, electrical students, they learn how about the electrical installations. So then, as a project and as assignment for that project, so they have to go outside and do the installations for the surau or for the rumah-rumah dan sebagainya. So that is what we call it the SULAM. This initiative is under KPT, and it runs by almost all of the University Awam in Malaysia, right? The second is now the KPT also initiates what we call it a social enterprise project. So this is a social enterprise project. Actually, the social enterprise is mainly to what we call it. When we start the project, we can sustain it because it must have the element of enterprise. So when it means that there are no longer we give one-off budget, so then they finish it under one day whatsoever, but they have to sustain with that budgets, right? So this social enterprise programs is under the Keusahawanan Siswa. So then we what we call it, encourage the students to initiate, and we give the money to for them to initiate and sustain the projects. Then the second category that I'm going to say is that I'm going to share is that under the staff levels, we have the projects that the lecturer brings their research, their expertise to go outside and help the societies. For example, we have the Fertigasi punya project, and Dr. Nurul sendiri you punya project. We have a few projects actually to help the societies and on the educations, right? Because lecturer is not on the research part only, they have also on the educations. For example, your STEM projects, right? To what you call it, to help the students outside engage with the science and technology, for example, right? And the third one and the last one is that under the students level, we have under the co-curriculum activities, right? Under the clubs and societies. So we have currently 85 clubs and societies. So then they go for their community project, because under the co-curriculum, we have two domains very important, or we call it core, right? We have the voluntary projects, and also under the community services. So what I can conclude is that UMP itself, we have that, and it also started or initiated by the KPT, and we also have our own programs, right, to bring the staff and also to bring the student, bring their expertise back to the societies, right?
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Joe. You mentioned just now about Sulam, yeah? So it's a formal module that student has to go through. How does it being evaluated?
No, actually, it's not. What I can say is that it's embedded in the subjects, right? So then for those who taking that subject, so they will have an assignments on that community services under that projects, right? But for the HEPA, for the co-curriculum matters, then we also plan to have a module, specific module for those who didn't take that particular subject. They can learn, and also they can have that modules.
Okay. So I believe the feedback or the information that we get today from Yasmin, also from Encik Hadim, we can infuse in those formal curriculum, and say for example on the evaluating the impact, drafting out the right impact for the society and so on. Okay, all right. Thank you. So I'll move on to the next panelist, Encik Halim. If we can go to the second question, which is how does the Aborigine respond to the programs that you have handled before? Were they supportive to the programs? Were they reluctant?
Baik, insyaAllah. Terima kasih kepada Puan Moderator. Pertama sekali, saya bersetujulah dengan pandangan Dr. Yasmin tu, iaitu apabila kita membuat program kemanusiaan atau bantuan ni di sesuatu komuniti tu, kita tidak boleh mengharap komuniti itu bergantung kepada kita sepanjang masa, kan? Kita mesti ada time frame, nah? Kemudian kita mesti ada exit plan, kan? Jadi maknanya biasanya setiap projek yang kita buat tu, kita memastikan bahawa akhirnya komuniti itu yang menjalankan program itu, ya, bukan kita. Kita insyaAllah kita akan pergi ke tempat lain pula lah, tapi mesti ada time frame. Macam contoh, macam kami di Aibano ni, kita target dalam 10 tahun. Dengan 10 tahun maknanya matlamat kita adalah by 10 tahun ini anak orang asli itu semua dah bersekolah di sekolah kerajaan. Tak ada yang tak nak pergi sekolah. Kerana bagi kita, apabila pendidikan itu berjaya, maka insyaAllah mereka akan senang untuk untuk bercampur dengan masyarakat umum, ya. Jadi bagaimanakah respon mereka terhadap projek yang kami buat ni, ya? Untuk makluman, projek ni bukanlah projek baru. Kita dah mula daripada tahun 2018, ya. Kerana realiti orang asli ni, walaupun mereka kadang tu sama kaum, tetapi mereka mungkin berbeza dari satu kampung ke satu kampung, ya. Sebab mereka duduk dalam komuniti mereka aja, mereka tak campur dengan komuniti lain walaupun satu puak, ya. Jadi biasanya pengalaman kami masa membuat program di orang asli di Kuala Lumpur, mereka senang untuk menerima, tetapi tidak di kampung Air Banun ni. Kehadiran kami peringkat awal ke Air Banun ni bukanlah laluan yang mudah. Kerana kehadiran orang luar mereka curigai. Sebelum ni, kalaulah kata orang pejabat kesihatan masuk ke kampung dia, mereka akan lari masuk hutan. Atau mereka akan halau keluar. Tak boleh masuk. Hatta kalau daripada Jakwa pun datang untuk beri bantuan, mereka tolak keluar. Ya, mereka walaupun PKN dah buat rumah PPRT tu, tapi mereka still nak duduk dekat rumah yang mereka buat daripada kata tu rumah natural mereka lah, insyaAllah. Ya. Dan kalau kita lihat masa peringkat awal kita masuk tu, anak-anaknya mereka masih kata tu bertelanjang bulat. Macam kalau kita pergi ke Afrika tu macam tu lah, ya, tak berbaju. Ya. Jadi bagaimanakah cara kita nak menangani mereka? Okey. Jadi sebelum kita boleh masuk, kita kenalah mendapat maklumat awal daripada pihak yang ada hubung kait, ya. Macam contoh ni kita dapat maklumat daripada pihak Jakwa, dari pihak Jabatan Agama dan NGO-NGO lain yang mana sebelum ini dah masuk ke kawasan itu, ya. Tapi seperti yang saya jelaskan tadi, projek yang kita nak buat itu mestilah berterusan, bukan one off seperti yang Dr. Yasmin kata tu, masa one off lepas tu keluar, bukan macam tu. Kita masuk, kita kena berterusan, ya. Jadi bagaimanakah kita nak menangani hati tok batin dan orang kampung tu, orang asli tu? Kerana kalau kita dapat menangani hati tok batin, insya-Allah senanglah kerja-kerja kita, ya. Jadi realiti kami di kampung Air Banun ni, kita ambil masa setahun, ya, setahun untuk menangi hati tok batin dan orang kuatnya dan pemuda kampung. Setahun. Maknanya kita tak boleh nak cakap apa, kita boleh datang, kita adakan bawa hadiah, adakan silaturahim dan kita membuat kerja-kerja kebajikan di kawasan dia. Macam contoh kalau kita tengok montaj yang kita buat tu, kita telah transform dewan tu, yang mana dewan itu dibuat oleh pihak berkuasa, tetapi ianya ditinggalkan begitu. Dengan bumbungnya bocor, tak berjagalah, kan. Jadi apabila kita masuk, yang pertama sekali kita pergi membaik pulih dewan tu untuk jadikan dewan aktiviti. Dan alhamdulillah apabila itu berjaya, maka mereka menerima kehadiran kita. Okey, maknanya kita kena buat satu yang positif untuk mereka. Ini, ya, setelah 3 tahun, kita telah membawa sinar baru ke kampung ini, yang mana logo kita tu boleh diletak di situ. Jadi adakah terus kita masuk? Tidak. Kita tengok sebab kita lihat bahawa mereka kawasan kampung ini, kehidupan mereka harian adalah berburu di hutan. Mereka tidak boleh membuat cucuk tanam sebab kawasan mereka adalah kawasan belum forest, iaitu World Heritage on Eco. Jadi mereka tidak boleh membunuh haiwan-haiwan. Apa yang sedih yang kami dengar cerita mereka tu, apabila mereka dah tanam ubi, dah tumbuh elok, tapi kemudian gajah dan babi serang. Jadi habis, hilang. Jadi mereka resent, atau mereka marahlah sebab mereka nak bunuh gajah tak boleh. Nak tembak babi hutan tak boleh. Kan, jadi mereka terpaksa, kata orang tu, mengharapkan kepada kata orang tu yang gajah punya line, kan. Tapi itu sebenarnya tidak berfungsi, kan. Jadi mereka resent kepada development, ya. Jadi apabila kita masuk, the first thing kita kata, kita mesti memastikan bahawa mereka mempunyai makanan yang cukup. Sebab kalau perut lapar, kan, apa cakap pun tak akan tak jadi apa. Jadi itulah kita memulakan di situ, iaitu dengan aktiviti pertanian. Iaitu kita tengok permasalahan dia adalah serangan binatang luar, binatang liar. Jadi kita gunalah kaedah untuk menghalang binatang luar ini daripada menyerang, insyaAllah, dan ia berjaya sedikit. Dan juga kita mengajari mereka cucuk tanam. Sebab bagi kita apabila cucuk tanam itu, apabila keluar buah berhasil dan mereka dapat duit, maka insyaAllah barulah kita boleh masuk ke arah untuk buat pengajaran. Sebab kita dah masuk dalam peringkat ini, dan peringkat ini insyaAllah kita akan masuk ke arah education, edubanun. Maknanya kita menjalankan aktiviti untuk mengajar anak-anak ni, sebab kita target anak-anak ini untuk reti membaca dan menulis sehingga mereka boleh masuk ke sekolah. Ya. Jadi memanglah peringkat awal mereka menolak, tetapi apabila kita berjaya menangani hati mereka, insyaAllah mereka memberi seperti yang moderator kata tu, mereka memberi sokongan yang tidak berbelah bagi. Malahan mereka bersungguh-sungguh lah. Mereka bersungguh-sungguh. Kadang tu kita pun malu kadang tu, ya. Jadi insyaAllah mungkin nanti kita boleh berkongsi lagi bagaimana cara kita melaksanakan program-program di Aibanun, insyaAllah. Saya katakan sebagai NGO, kita memang tidaklah mempunyai sumber kewangan yang kuat. Kita bergantung kepada sumbangan ahli-ahli dan juga sumbangan daripada orang luar dan juga sumbangan dari kata tu industri-industri yang melalui CSR, ya. Dan untuk penerusannya itu, kami macam haluan kita mengadakan MOU, COC, COC ataupun kerjasama dengan Politeknik Tuanku Sultanah Bahiyah di Kulim, di mana pelajar-pelajar mereka akan kita bawa untuk mengerjakan kerja-kerja kesukarelawanan di Aibanun, dan mereka pelajar-pelajar itu akan mendapat kredit daripada kerja yang mereka laksanakan. Dan kita memang terbukalah untuk mengadakan COC, Certificate of Collaboration ni, dengan mana-mana institusi yang mana kita boleh menyediakan ruang untuk mahasiswa-mahasiswa ni untuk turun ke medan. InsyaAllah, ya, turun ke medan. Memang dengan asli kita perlu kepada pemantauan yang berterusan. Pengalaman kami dulu, beri mereka alat, tapi kita tak pantau. Bulan depan tak habis alat semua hilang. Tak. Jadi kita kena pantau. Nah, itulah sebab sini status kami sekarang ni adalah dalam sebulan itu kami akan hantar pemantauan sekurang-kurangnya 2 kali. InsyaAllah barulah ia boleh berjalan. Tapi dia mesti ada time frame, insyaAllah. Jadi maknanya cubaan peringkat awal ada, tetapi apabila kita berjaya menyantuni mereka, insyaAllah mereka menerima dengan hati terbuka. Saya ingat apabila kami bertemu dengan pihak Jakwa untuk buat aktiviti, sebab untuk NGO dia mesti kena bekerjasama dengan pihak autoriti lah, ya, bukan boleh masuk kata tu begitu saja, kan. So apabila kami berbincang dengan Jakwa tentang kampung ini, dia kata kamu buatlah apa yang boleh buat, kami dah tak tahu macam mana nak menyantuni mereka. Sebab beri dewan dia biarkan, beri benih-benih tak menjadi. Jadi alhamdulillah apabila kita masuk, insya-Allah adalah ada improvement lah. Dan alhamdulillah kita sekarang ini mendapatlah tajaan daripada pihak UNDP serta grant untuk melaksanakan projek pertanian di kawasan Aibanun. Dan kita berharap sama-samalah berdoakan agar projek ini boleh berjalan dengan baik. Allah Alam. Saya serahlah balik kepada moderator.
Okay. InsyaAllah. Terima kasih Encik Halim. Interesting. Encik Halim mention 10 tahun sekurang-kurangnya masa yang diperlukan untuk nak mengambil masa yang diambil untuk membuat sesuatu perubahan dalam komuniti. Dan nyatanya tadi daripada yang apa Encik Ahlim sampaikan adalah kena build that trust, kepercayaan tu. Dan bila dah build the trust, then only kita boleh tahu macam mana apa sebenarnya keperluan. Dan thank you for sharing this. Sebelum ni saya banyak dengar tentang bagaimana reluctantnya orang-orang asli ni nak berubah daripada kehidupan dia yang biasa di mana mereka selesa. Tapi dekat sini saya tengok haluan ni ada bawa banyak program lah di mana start dengan pergi kepada core of the problem, contohnya macam tadi makanan tadi tu, dan daripada situ dah build in the trust, baru bawa masuk elemen-elemen seperti pendidikan dan sebagainya. Thank you for sharing that. So tadi juga Encik Halim ada mention yang aktiviti macam ni perlu sokongan yang kuat lah daripada industri and also daripada community, corporate, social and so on, terutamanya daripada segi dana. So I would like to pose this question to Dr. Yasmin, based on your experience, how does corporate organisation measure the impact of community related activities ataupun program in which I could say could encourage them to support these kind of activities?
I think it varies from one company to another. It also depends on how advanced some of these private companies are in, or how serious they are in taking into consideration the social impact of their business. So contohnya certain companies setakat CSR, setahun sekali buat open house raya dengan anak yatim, sometimes they call that as social impact, social value. So for them maybe the indicators would be berapa ramai orang hadir, berapa orang ramai yang terima bantuan dan sebagainya. And there are also some companies who look at creating employment opportunities, katakan for B40 communities. Now this is a little bit more complex. It's a little bit more, I guess, in-depth to look at improving a person's quality of life. So I think it all depends how current, how updated these companies are. And I think time is catching up. Sebab sekarang most companies are obligated to subscribe to some sort of ESG, environmental, social, and sustainability governance. And also because today most of companies are owned by very young shareholders that are more aware of the future that needs to be very impact driven or very purposeful with impact initiatives. So I think it, like I said just now, that it cuts across a very wide spectrum. But I'm happy to see a lot of Malaysian companies subscribing to, let's say, the UN SDGs, subscribing to like the Global Reporting Initiative, taking actually really serious efforts in planning on how a company gives back to growing a vibrant community, creating a vibrant city. So I would think that in the future, the demand for such programs will increase. The demand for NGOs offering such programs will increase, and there will probably be a more substantial discussion on the kind of methodologies out there that will help us track and measure. So I would look forward to a very near future di mana maybe the country as a whole, Malaysia boleh buat laporan the total social impact by 1 million companies with this value of 45 billion has helped the country improve katakan education, sanitation by this percentage. So essentially corporates should provide efforts for socially driven efforts so that we can reduce our reliance on government support. I think that is a very effective way. The normal perception is kita asyik go back to the government, go back to grants, go back to all sorts of financial mechanisms and institutes for support. So if the corporates have a right methodology and can measure the impact, imagine what the government will be saving in terms of social things like social infrastructure, that kind of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Yasmin. Lately, in events or in proposal writing and so on, people start to take UN SDG as the baseline. For example, I think that is also good indicator as we are more aware on what are the merits to be measured and what are the items that normally we look into whenever we do this kind of activities. So I would like to pose next question to Dr. Joe. From your point of view, why must students or youth be equipped with achieving impactful frameworks whenever they come out with a proposal or come up with an idea to do programs with the community?
Yeah, Dr. Nurul, Cik Alim, Dr. Yasmin. First of all, I said, first and foremost is that uh, all of our students, they are actually our future leaders. This is very important, right? Because they are future leaders, and they not only needs to be equipped with the theories, but they also need to go on the grounds, right, to gain experience and so on, right? And the first reason is that uh, we need the students actually when they involve in the social impact programs or community surveys, it brings them to learn beyond the classrooms. As we know that what we learn in the classroom is not exactly the same as what will happen in the grounds, right, and outsides or in the societies, right. So it will expose the students more with the outside worlds, and it also offers the chance for the to enrichment their skills and abilities, and also it is a great way for the students to see how the concept they have learned and how actually it works in the real world. This is very important. The first is that it will bring the students learning beyond the classrooms, right? The second is that volunteering activities, programs, it will build the students' characters and values. This is very important because we are talking about characters and values developments. It cannot be achieved in the classrooms, right? In the classroom, they only can hear, they only can listen to what have been taught to them, but the characters and values is nurtured in the programs itself. So then with the community service, actually the students they can improve their skills. They are valuable in their life, and for example, the problem solving skills as well as the ability to follow instructions, right? Because follow instruction is they only can experience that when they are on the grounds, right? The third is that the student can meet friends with common goals, and this is very important for their networkings, actually, networking opportunities. So then the students with the community service programs, they can meet up with not only with their new friends, and also they can have a networking, engage the networking with the local leaders, right, community leaders, and so on. The fourth is volunteering works is actually will enhance their team building opportunities as well, right? Because it is quite impossible to do the social works alone, right? So you need to team up, and then this will enhance your team building opportunities and skills. And the last one is that it is a great a platform for the problem solving buildings, right? The skill builders, right? So as we know that when they go into the society, they go to the platforms. So then there is a lot of problems, and it will increase and also enhance their problem solving skills. So for me, in theory, right? This is all the theories, right? The first and foremost is that students will learn beyond the classrooms. They will gain all the characters and values. They will develop characters and values, networking purposes, team building purposes, and also the last is that it's a great opportunity for the students to enhance their problem skills, ability in the social impact projects.
Thank you, Dr. Joe. So, in order to make this, in order to realize this, student has to go to the ground.
Yeah, sure.
Then only they can practice all the soft
Right.
skills
Yeah,
element
yeah,
as you mentioned
yeah,
just now.
yeah.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
It is actually what we call it educational platforms, right?
This is also the similar framework as the Sulam that you mentioned just now.
Yeah,
Is this the same?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, thank you, thank you. So I'll go with the next question to Encik Halim. Just now you had mentioned that the resistance of the Aborigines when you first bring in a program to the community. So if you could share with us some other challenges that you face before the program, during the program, and also during the program.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Pertama sekali saya bersetujulah sangat dengan pandangan Dr. Ahmad Johari iaitu students are a future leaders. Students are future leaders. Dan itulah sebabnya kami memang menggalakkan untuk kita adakan COC, Certificate of Collaboration, dengan institusi pengajian tinggi untuk kita kata tu joint venture dalam melaksanakan program-program menangani masyarakat yang memerlukan bantuan. Kerana di Malaysia ni kita masih ramai lagi, banyak lagi kampung-kampung yang mana memerlukan sumbangan-sumbangan selain daripada yang dilaksanakan oleh kerajaan, pihak NGO dan juga pihak swasta pun kena membantu, insyaAllah. Pengalaman kami apabila kami terlibat dengan perkampungan orang asli ni, kita boleh lihat maknanya bukan satu kampung, banyak lagi kampung yang memerlukan bantuan. Tapi kita, kemampuan kita setakat ini dulu lah kita buat, insyaAllah. Jadi, Tuan Moderator, berbakti dan berdakwah. Sebab kita berbakti dan kita berdakwah kena dua-dua. Kepada orang asli kita perlukan kepada kesabaran dan strategi yang tersusun rapi. Kita memerlukan strategi itu, insyaAllah. Jadi, soalan kepada kami adalah apakah challenge yang kita hadapi sebelum, selepas dan terhadap program korang di sini. Ya. Jadi, bagaimana kita hendak soalan yang sangat relevan lah. Jadi, problem yang paling utama adalah bagaimana kita hendak mengubah cara pemikiran dan sosioekonomi sebuah komuniti yang 100% buta huruf. Inilah cabaran terbesar terhadap projek yang kami laksanakan. Kerana mereka, masa kita pergi tu memang rata-rata majoriti tak reti membaca dan menulis. Jadi mereka selalu ditipu oleh peraih-peraih. Mereka pergi ke hutan, membawa barang hutan, akar kayu, buah-buahan. Bila dijual ke peraih, mereka ambil begitu murah. Tapi bila dijual di bandar, dengan harga yang mahal. Jadi maknanya mereka ditipu. Ada occasion tu, mereka datang, duit pun mereka tak bayar. Duit pun mereka tidak bayar. Jadi kita boleh lihat bagaimana orang asli ini telah dimanipulasikan. Jadi tujuan kita adalah kalau mereka tidak buta huruf, boleh membaca, menulis, mengira, insya-Allah kita boleh membantu mereka. Itu sebab dalam projek kami, program di Aibanu ni, yang mana kita target 10 tahun ni, kita mempunyai 2 visi. Iaitu yang pertama, kita akan cuba membaiki sosioekonomi mereka agar mereka berdiri dari segi pendapatan. Ini yang kita buat melalui kantoran tu commercial farming. Maknanya kita bising sikit. Maaf Ustaz. Minta maaf Ustaz.
Okay,
baik.
Tak apa.
Baik. Iaitu kita membaiki sosioekonomi mereka agar mereka berdikari. Dari ini kita laksanakan dari segi commercial farming. Itu yang mana kita dapat bantuan daripada pihak UNDP. Ya. Yang kedua, kita nak mengeluarkan mereka daripada keadaan buta huruf agar dapat membaca, menulis dan mengira, agar mereka tidak mudah ditipu oleh orang luar yang berurusan dengan mereka. Jadi ini dua misi kami, insya-Allah, ya. Jadi apa yang kita bahagiakan adalah apabila kita dapat menyelesaikan kedua visi ini, maka insya-Allah kerana majoriti mereka adalah orang Islam. Majoriti semua adalah Islam. Tetapi mereka bukan Muslim beramal. Kerana mereka jahil tentang ilmu dan buta huruf. Pernah pengalaman kami, apabila berjumpa dengan Tok Batin, apabila ajak dia ambil wuduk, dia kata, saya pakai kasut tak boleh ambil wuduk. Jadi kita faham lah ya, kita faham. Saya berkasut tak boleh ambil wuduk. Ya? Kita faham itulah insyaAllah. Jadi maknanya, kita kena mengubah minda mereka ya. Tapi pengalaman kami adalah mereka ini orang asli ni, mereka ini orang yang luhur hati mereka. Mereka memang luhur hati mereka. Dan boleh ditegur dan mereka inginkan perubahan. Inilah kita sebagai sukarelawan NGO ingin sebenarnya melaksanakannya. Maknanya kita ingin mempertingkatkan mereka daripada daripada tidak tahu jadi mereka yang tahu, dan mereka yang kata orang tu apabila semua selesai mereka yang akan melaksanakan Islam sebagaimana yang dihendaki. Ya, jadi peringkat awalnya adalah saya jelaskan iaitu kita mesti memenangi hati mereka. InsyaAllah. Itu yang dapat kami share untuk soalan yang ditanya oleh moderator tu insyaAllah.
Okey. Terima kasih Encik Halim. Memahami mereka dan seterusnya memenangi hati mereka, dan kita boleh buat aktiviti dan mendapat sambutan insyaAllah. Okay, thank you for sharing that. So saya pergi kepada Dr. Yasmin. One thing that always appear when we talk about community engagement and so on is social enterprise. So from your point of view, how can we encourage more youth to be involved in social enterprise activities and so on?
I don't know. I don't know if social entrepreneurship is everyone's cup of tea. Compared to a traditional entrepreneurial endeavor, social entrepreneurship ni, I would say depending on the person lah. Nak cakap rugi juga, because you're not really entirely profit driven as a social entrepreneur. You partially, you need to generate revenue, but I guess your focus is also on delivering impact, social change, environmental change. Compared to a traditional capitalistic entrepreneur, banyak beza sebenarnya. So I think the way social entrepreneurs are born out of necessity. Social entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs who see that there are problems that can be solved in communities. And while solving these problems, it invokes or it catalyzes into a entrepreneurial platform. That's how I define social entrepreneurship. And if you are a student listening to this, or if you are someone who likes the concept of social entrepreneurship, I think more fundamentally than being an entrepreneur is finding out what sort of community issues and challenges you'd like to tackle in your backyard or in your kampong or in school or on campus. And I think that's fundamental. It's very subject matter driven, social entrepreneurship. So I think students probably need to be more exposed to understanding what are today's current challenges, socially or environmentally or politically or economically. Understand their relationship to these challenges, provide an opportunity to explore what sort of problems can be solved using whatever way. Could be technology, could be social innovation. And then lastly, look at whether this could be enterprising enough so that while you're creating social or environmental change, people can get jobs, can be employed, can generate revenue from that. So I think in short, students probably just need to understand the fundamental definition of what social entrepreneurship before jumping into it as if it's like something trendy. I want to be a social entrepreneur tomorrow. I think if you actually talk to a lot of these founders of social enterprise, kebanyakan ramai daripada orang didn't probably plan to be a social entrepreneur. It just happened by chance that there is a problem that needs to be solved with communities, and there is an enterprising solution for it.
Okay, so As for you, Dr. Yasmin, how did you start with this social enterprising? I mean, looking back into the Eco Night and so on, it seems like you had reached quite a number of programs and also activities and so on. I believe it started with passions, yeah, passion and also passions. How do you start with this kind of activities before back
I
in 15 years ago?
Yeah, I first heard social entrepreneurship in 2012 when tiba-tiba the
Trend.
press media had a lot of stories apa tu social entrepreneurship sebab kat negara macam UK and all that it's a very big sector. If I'm not mistaken, social entrepreneurship punya ecosystem contributes close to 30% of United Kingdom's GDP, which means social entrepreneurship is really not just benefiting the country economically, but making really massive change. So I think Malaysia had the aspiration to tap into what was this formula that social enterprise has that can reduce communities' reliance on government, empower community at the same time solve social environmental challenges. So I think for me, I accidentally got into it when the public, the media, academics, government agencies started calling me a social entrepreneur, started looking at Econites as a social enterprise. And that got my curiosity, and I started looking into why do people call us a social enterprise? Three main things, which is very critical. Number one, our mission and vision for Econites is very clear. It's really to solve challenges related to sustainable development in the country. So it is a vision and mission that is not entirely organization centric and it's not profit driven. It's really for the people. Number two, we have a business model. Even though we're an NGO, we have a business model that tells us we operate like a social enterprise, where revenue is generated from activities and this revenue is pumped back into supporting the growth and scale up of our community programs. And of course, over time, we have created a lot of employment opportunities for B40 communities through Econites as well. And lastly is we have very clear definition of siapakah target beneficiary kita, where are they located, and how do we track and measure our impact. So these three criteria are very important and help forms the definition of a social enterprise. Jadi siapa yang berminat to understand what social enterprise is, dari segi definisi and how we recognize them, you can go to Magic's website di bawah MOSI, and they are the agency that developed the social enterprise guidelines and accreditation. Jadi sekarang social enterprise dah ada a bit more definition, a bit more, I would say a bit more recognition in the Malaysian ecosystem as a driver for economic and social change. And I was very, very lucky 2 years ago, no, not 2 years ago, 2019, when I was working with Magic, that we launched the social enterprise guideline and accreditation program. Jadi sekarang corporate yang ingin membantu community dari segi social impact, environmental impact boleh menyalurkan dana mereka kepada social enterprise yang dah diakreditasikan oleh Magic. And I think they're also working out a very strong effort to provide benefits to corporates that support or donate to social enterprise to do community development work. So Malaysia has advanced a lot in the last 10 years, I would say, in the world of social entrepreneurship development. More needs to be done, more needs to be seen. Sekarang semua, almost anyone can call themselves an SE if you feel like it, just because you do good work. And I think it's important now, especially students, are able to define and understand what the true SE is before they get caught up with something that's trendy but may not necessarily be legitimate or recognized.
Okay. Thank you for the sharing, Dr. Yasmin. Now, this reminded me back to the STEM lab activities and so on. We used to have requests from schools to do trainings, and there was a point in which we reach a point that we need to sustain, because when we do teachings and so on and it involves electronics component, we need to find a way. And without realizing that that is also an element of social enterprising.
Yeah.
And now they are doing this to serve the community nearby in Pekan and Kuantan. So coming to this, I hope can be an example so that we can take this beyond the robotics classes and so on.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll
add,
move on. Sorry, yes, Dr. Yasmin?
yeah, I just like to add that I
Okay.
think in the bigger scheme of things, kebanyakan daripada SEs ni need to have a bit more guidance. So I think my Econites team got a shock of their life when I challenged the team to look at reducing our, when we first started, we got a lot of government grants and support. And we were young and we thought that was the right way to go through it. And then when we realized that government is very volatile, it's also very politically determined. On a good years, you get support. On bad years, you don't get support. Dah le nama NGO. So, it really depends who is in power and how people in power label you as an NGO. So there are good years and bad years. And for me, it wasn't a viable and sustainable option. So I put a challenge to the Econites team. Every year I will track, we must reduce our reliance of funds from government. Up to, I think, 2016-17, we were down to just 5% of our revenue or funding comes from government. And I wanted to prove to my team that we should be helping the government reduce their expenditure by coming up with our innovative ways to solve community issues, not consistently relying on their funding. If we rely on their funding every year just to survive, then we ourselves are not a sustainable entity. So I think that thinking is critical. I see today a lot of young generations dah 10 tahun buat social entrepreneurship, masih lagi minta grant. Masih lagi professional grant entrepreneur. And I think we need to really mature from this situation.
5% is impressive. So now Econites is only depending around 5% from the grants, and others are self-generated funds and so on. Yeah,
Government, we have to self-generate. Then we can govern how we want to grow and scale up our programs. If you're always relying on a third party that is not secure, how do you grow as an entity? So we solve our own problems.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Yasmin. So I'll move on into the last round for the last questions.
Yeah.
Okay, I start with Dr. Jo again. How does an institution such as UMP cultivate this kind of culture? Like I think Dr. Yasmin's input on the social enterprising knowledge in the beginning, and also how it can move into become professionals in this kind of area. So how UMP plan to cultivate this among students?
All right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Basically, I would like to start with we have the abilities of developments for the students, right? As I mentioned about we have the classroom platforms, and as well as we have the experiential platforms, right? So what are they? The first is that the ability ataupun kebolehan menimba ilmu then apply. That's the first one. Second is kebolehan menyelidik dan melaksanakan kerja praktikal. The third one is kebolehan the students to mahir dalam they use the modern tools, right? And the fourth is more about the what you call it the high level thinking skills, right? So this is more what we call it the classroom platforms, right? And we have the other four is that they have the ability to communicate effectively, and we also develop the ability untuk berniaga, mengurus, and the seventh is that kebolehan memimpin. But the most important and the most special one is that we put there the ability ataupun kebolehan melaksanakan kerja kesukarelawan terhadap persekitaran dan kelestarian alam. So this is very important for UMP students, right? It means what? It means we at the Student Development Center, we have the responsibilities to develop on this particular part, right? Okay, how we do that, how we cultivate is that through what we call the three level of components, right? The first one is that Student can learn through the formal learning under all the modules that we have in the HEPA, in the Student Development Center. The second one is that through the, what we call it, the experiential learning educations, right? Through the, they go and do the activities. And the third one is through the social learning platforms, right? Through the clubs and societies. So this is the what we call it, the education elements, right? Formal learnings, we have the experiential learnings, and so we have the social learnings. Second one is that we provide them with the financial supports from the UMP itself, and we are in the planning to train the student to apply all the grants from the outsider, right? For examples, there is two projects I really like with these projects. The first is that by the UIA students, they managed to get a grant from the US Embassy, if I'm not mistaken, with the Nasi Lemak projects, right? They have all the people surrounding the UIA, and also the UTM students. They got it for the technology or for the STEM projects, right? From the US Embassy. So we will train our students to apply for those grants, right? Availables. This is the first approach. The second one is that we try to allocate the students, what we call it, focus on a certain demographic area. For example, we will focus on all the communities around UMP campus, right? We don't go beyond, and we need to focus on that. That is on the students. And for the staff, this is very, very, what you call it, quite new, and for me it's very important, right? We need to understand that in UMP 25, right, our new strategic plan, we have the second strategic objective. What are they? What is there? Is that inovasi dengan kerjasama industries, and the other KPI kat situ adalah kerjasama naik taraf keupayaan technical industries. This is very important. We're talking about the social impact. Before this is more about how we engage with the social problems, I can say. But from the university level, this is quite new for me, but I can consider this as the social impact, which is we empower the industry with the technologies, right? We have the expertise, we have the lecturers, we have the researchers, professors, and so on. So now, under the second objective of our strategic plan is that all the professors, they need to go to the industries, understand them, help them, and consult them to improve and to upgrade their facilities and their technique, their management skill, and so on. So even though this is we say that it's more about the innovations on the research, but actually it will give social impact to the industries. It means we help the SMEs, so they will empower their what I call it, their activities, their business with the technologies. So we got two approach for the students, as I say, and for the staff. Actually, it goes under the second strategy objectives of the UMP, which is we will help the industries, we will empower them. So we don't, what you call it, compete with the industries, but now we are going to help them and upgrade their systems and upgrade their how they run the business outside. So for me, this is the what we have done in the UMP.
It seems like a very comprehensive framework,
Yeah.
having industry,
Yeah.
university, and also the community, whether
Really.
local community or
And
industry as
that's
the
it.
community.
As a community, yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jo. Thank
Right.
you. Okay, I'd like to move on to Encik Halim. Finally, what is your advice to those who wanted to do programs with these origins? What are the tips ataupun things that they need to consider before embarking in such program?
Terima kasih Pak Moderator. Pertama sekali, saya bersetuju dengan pandangan Dr. Yasmin tu, maknanya apabila kita melaksanakan projek kemasyarakat, kita jangan mengharap pada grant daripada luar. Ya, kita mesti berusaha untuk duit untuk dana untuk melaksanakan datang daripada kita sendiri ataupun kita generate daripada sasaran kita tu. Macam contoh, kalau projek kami di Aibanu ni memang kami merancangkan agar kita tidak beri mereka bantuan dana, tetapi kita nak mereka berusaha dengan bercocok tanam, dengan commercial farming. Dari hasil itu mereka dapat guna untuk upgrade kampung mereka. Jadi inilah satu daripada NGO ataupun siapa-siapa yang nak masuki membantu masyarakat, dia mestilah self-sufficient. Jangan bergantung kepada grant luar. Kalau dapat, Alhamdulillah. Mintalah sebanyak yang boleh. Tapi kalau tak dapat, it's no problem. Inilah apa yang kami buat. Selama 3 tahun kita bergerak tu, kita tidak mendapat bantuan daripada mana-mana agensi. Tapi ia daripada sumbangan ahli-ahli dan juga sumbangan daripada orang ramai. InsyaAllah ya. Baik. Bagaimanakah para penonton ataupun para pendengar dapat menyumbang dalam program menyantuni orang asli atau program-program kemasyarakatan? Jadi pertama sekali, yang pertama dia ada 3 ya. Yang pertama, kita mesti memahami ataupun memahami akan budaya mereka. Kita mesti menghormati adat budaya mereka. Bagi masyarakat Islam di Malaysia yang bermazhab Sunni, anjing adalah satu isu yang sensitif dan interaksi kita dengan anjing dijaga dengan betul kerana ia melibatkan sah atau tidaknya ibadah khusus yang kita laksanakan. Tetapi bagi masyarakat orang asli, haiwan anjing adalah keperluan mereka. Ya, jadi haiwan anjing itu sebagai keperluan mereka. Dan kerana mereka perlu untuk hidup, kerana anjing ini adalah binatang peliharaan yang banyak membantu mereka dari serangan binatang buas dan juga dari keselamatan kampung mereka. Jadi apabila kita berada bersama mereka, kita kena hormati cara hidup mereka. Selalu saya memberi nasihat kepada relawan-relawan daripada luar yang datang bersama kami nak masuk kampung asli, kamu kena hormati cara beraya mereka. Kalau kamu nampak anjing tu, janganlah kamu tendang, elakkanlah ya. Jangan macam kata merendahkan mereka. Ya. Itu penting. Kalau kita ambil sikap macam mana tidak menghormati cara hidup mereka, insya-Allah mereka akan menolak kita keluar terus. Next time masuk mereka tak bekerjasama. Yang kedua, kita kena berinteraksi berterusan dengan mereka. Bukan one off. Ini yang banyak kegagalan NGO ni. Dia datang buat program sekali je, lepas tu dia balik. Dia tinggalkan macam tu. Ya. Tapi satu lagi, apabila kita memasuki kampung mereka, kita mestilah membawa barang-barang hadiah. Dan budaya mereka, kalau kita nak beri hadiah, kita kena beri ke semua penduduk kampung. Semua mesti dapat. Ya. Mana bukan kita beri ke hadiah ketuk batin je, tak boleh. Kalau kita bawa, kita beri ke semua kampung mesti dapat. Ya. Dan mereka bukanlah memerlukan barang-barang yang mahal. Tetapi ala kadar saja. Contoh, kalau kita masuk, kita bawa gula 1 kilo atau bawa roti, insya-Allah kita bawa untuk diberikan kepada semua penduduk kampung tu. Kalau ada 20 rumah, 20 paket lah kita bawa. Itu is very important. Itu important. Dan yang ketiga dan yang paling penting adalah mana-mana kerja lah, insya-Allah ya. Kita kena mengikhlaskan kerja-kerja kita ini dalam menyantuni mereka. Jangan kita mengharapkan balasan. Memang ada berlaku di mana apabila kita masuk ke orang asli ni, kita suruh dia cari macam-macam. Suruh cari ikan lah, suruh cari macam-macam, ikan tasik maksudnya. Tetapi kita ambil begitu saja. Biasanya apa yang kita buat, kalau kita suruh mereka cari, kita mesti beri imbuhan pada mereka. Jangan nak ambil free atau tu. Minta free jangan sekali-kali. Kita mesti memberi imbuhan. Itu penting ya. Jadi memanglah kita mengharapkanlah ya masyarakat sentiasa membantu NGO yang hendak melaksanakan projek-projek kemasyarakatan di tempat yang memerlukan. Contoh kami target di keadaan negara ni di perkampungan orang asli. Tapi bukan di sini saja, insya-Allah ia akan berterusan ke mana tempat yang memerlukan bantuan. Jadi akhirnya apa yang nak dapat saya simpulkan ya, iaitu apabila kita terjun ke dalam masyarakat untuk membantu mereka, maka kita mesti ada perancangan yang rapi, Dan kita mesti ada seperti yang Puan Yasmin kata, kita mesti quantify kejayaan kita tu. Baru kita boleh bertindak dan barulah boleh mereka yang beri bantuan tu mereka akan beri bantuan. Itu penting ya. Macam contoh kalau kami, apakah quantify kami di Aibano ni? Kita quantify maknanya by 5 tahun insya-Allah projek pertanian mereka akan mengetatkan hasil. Maknanya kita dapat membantu mereka untuk projek pertanian mereka menjadi baiklah ya. Dan yang kedua apa dia? Ialah kita memastikan bahawa anak-anak di kawasan Aibano ni semua pergi sekolah. Jangan sekarang ni cuma seorang yang pergi ke sekolah yang dekat rumah. Ya, jadi itulah kita kena mesti ada target kita insya-Allah. Wallahu alam. Saya serahlah balik pada puan moderator insya-Allah.
Okey. Terima kasih Encik Halim. Seronok dengar cerita Encik Halim. Paling penting memahami dan menyantuni masyarakat ya, supaya kita dapat establish trust tadi tu. Kita yang membuat aktiviti dan mereka yang menerima aktiviti tu dapat mencapai semaksimum yang kita sasarkan lah, semaksimum impact yang kita sasarkan. Terima kasih Encik Halim. Okay, saya move kepada Dr. Yasmin with the last question. What are the challenges to execute impactful program in this post-COVID? Not to say post-COVID lah. I mean, due to the COVID, there are changes and we are unable to go to the ground that much as we used before this COVID era. So what are the challenges and how do you think that we can address this the best as possible so that this kind of social activities can still continue despite this current situation and so on?
Well, I think one thing we realize is the power of the digital landscape. And
digital landscape.
Naturally, our community development programs that people cannot go turun padang, kan? We cannot engage with the communities and also just protect the safety of our staff and the safety of communities. We realized that in general, the population was just spending more time on the digital ecosystem. And we leverage on a lot of our programs to be delivered digitally, workshops, talks, podcasts. We also deliver webinars and forums. And I think the capacity for the digital content is strong. Sebab you can basically broadcast it anytime and you can have access to it anytime. To a certain extent, digital engagement, even though there's no face-to-face interaction, it reaches out to more audience. So that's one thing. And then number two, I think the challenge is reduced capacity in running capacity development programs. But kita kena observe SOP, kita kena make sure that we protect human health first before we run community development programs. In general, many of our programs have shrunk in size and reduced in capacity. But I would like to add on that we are doing more on the digital side, producing content, doing a lot more engagement. And we realize that now with COVID, before COVID, our audience was very targeted, a specific community, a specific government agency. Sekarang, when we do our work on the digital side, the whole world can have access to what we do. And for that, I think we're very thankful COVID pushed us to really roll out a lot of our digital programs so that more people can utilize it.
Yeah, the whole world can have access, but sometimes the targeted community with insufficient devices might be hindered a bit. But we have to take up this challenge and try to fit in the environment. Yeah, meaning that moving into digitally is one of the steps that is currently working. Okay. Dr. Yasmin, I actually have another two questions from the audience.
Sure.
If you're okay to take up this question. So I have one coming from a student of ours, Yi Jiajun, which asks that what is the difference between social return of investment and social entrepreneurship? They seems to be similar, but what are the different, or are they different from your point of view?
Yeah, they're very different. Social entrepreneurship is a field of entrepreneurship, whereas social return of investment is basically your ROI based on your investment. So I think for me, they're very two different things. As ROI will be used by a completely different stakeholder, whereas social entrepreneurship probably relates more to the entrepreneur itself. So as ROI is something like a methodology lah. Setiap ringgit yang kita hulurkan kepada whatever bantuan kepada community, can we measure apakah social impact kepada beneficiary yang menerima seringgit tu? Adakah bantuan itu membantu dia mengembangkan benefit dia kepada RM2.50? You know, that kind of thing. And it's also along the concept of philosophy of don't give a man a fish, but teach a man how to fish.
Yeah.
So I would describe as ROI as that way. For every dollar I give you, like if I'm a parent, I pay 20,000 ringgit for you to go to school in UMP. What is my ROI as a parent after you have graduated in terms of how you have improved yourself dari segi career ke, employment ke dan sebagainya. I hope that is clear.
Yeah, she was. Okay. Yeah. Return of investment is one thing. Social return of investment is another thing, right?
Totally two different things.
Okay. So there is this one last question. I would like to ask. I would like to pose this to Encik Halim. How do we encourage students to build up their volunteerism into being actively involved with the community?
Ini soalan cepu, Masya Allah. Sebab target kita lepas program ni, kita ambil hajat student-student UMP ni akan turun bersama kita ke lapangan lah, insyaAllah. Ya. Jadi sebenarnya kita tu dari segi realiti ya. Sebab dunia pelajar ni adalah satu yang berbeza daripada dunia kita bekerja. Sebab saya pun dulu belajar juga, saya faham lah. Yang penting saya rasa adalah first and foremost adalah memastikan bahawa aktiviti pelajar kepada dalam aktiviti kemasyarakatan mesti diberi kredit. Itu yang penting. Kalau kata diberi kredit dan diwajibkan hadir, insya-Allah mereka akan hadir. Ya. Itu yang hakikat dia macam tu. Ya, hakikat dia macam itu. Dan yang kedua, kita membuat program-program pelajar ni program yang menyeronokkan. Ya, bukan program yang mendera kata orang tu. Ya, macam contoh kami apabila kami buat program di Aibanun, kita jemput budak-budak student datang. Selepas mereka bergotong royong untuk membersih tanah untuk pertanian, kita bawa dia mandi di dekat air terjun yang kawasan tawangan asli tu. Itu mereka seronok. Kan? Jadi kena ada kata orang tu suasana menghibur juga, insya-Allah ya. Suasana menghibur. Biarlah mereka lari keluar daripada suasana kampus kepada suasana luar. Suasana luar yang kata tidak yang bebas lah kata, yang bebas dari segi bebas terkawal, insya-Allah ya. Bahaya juga kan nanti bila kita bawa pelajar-pelajar masuk ni, dia tidak memahami adat resam tempat yang kita pergi tu, masalah juga. Jadi itu perlu dijaga, insyaAllah. Itulah yang dapat saya share lah kepada Tuan Moderator.
Okey. Terima kasih Encik Halim. Terima kasih Dr. Yasmin. Terima kasih Dr. Jo. I think this is very interactive and also very insightful, especially for us to delve deeper into this community engagement and also achieving social impact. Nyatanya for UMP, there are a number of series lagi activities and also maybe like bengkel and workshop as to encourage staff and students to be involved. And Dr. Yasmin, I hope we can collaborate again in future. We were talking.
I think UMP students are amazing. We have many UMP interns in the past.
Oh, really?
And some of them are really strong student leaders on campus. So I have to say we are quite impressed with
Wow.
the caliber of UMP students that have interned with us. So we really look forward to more collaboration with UMP.
Okay, thank you. So meaning that our students have engaged with you. Well, I'm quite new to this. Yeah.
Some of them are already working. I think for the last 10 years, some are from Isaac, some are
Oh, I see.
Ramai. Actually,
Okay.
they are very memorable interns. So I remember them.
Okay, thank you, thank
Tahniah.
you.
Tahniah.
How your ecosystem there is very good, producing really good students. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Okay, and to Dr. Yasmin also to Encik Halim, do continue your good
Yeah.
work, and yeah, we will use you guys as one. I mean, as our icons. I mean,
Yeah.
to these students to be involved in community engagement. So thank you again. InsyaAllah kita akan jumpa lagi di sesi dan masa yang akan datang. InsyaAllah. Okay, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih. Salam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Isaac Club. Oh, David, please.